It's that time again. NASCAR is back on Prime Sports Network for 2023 as Joey Logano is both the defending Cup champion and the Clash champ as we talk some Clash NASCAR, which is returning on Sunday. How's it going, Eric? Good to have you back for another year, by the way.
Yeah. We did IndyCar last week, and now we got NASCAR, and really from here till 38 weeks. Next 38 weeks, You're going to have it's a long season ahead. It's the shortest off season in sports, and it's one of the longest seasons in sports on the other side. So it's a grueling stretch, but this is the beginning.
Yes, and this season is going to be really, we're going into overdrive. So all the training wheels are off. And we have, you'll be doing your own reports, your solo IndyCar reports just about every week. CJ, we've got CJ doing some actual full-time duty, even though it's F1, so it's not it's not NASCAR schedule, but still, it's great to have CJ back full-time. He's going to be covering the F1, and then he's also, of course, going to be here part-time like he was last year for our NASCAR coverage. So this is the first show. We're going to preview the Clash. Next Tuesday, the three of us get together and we talk about not only the upcoming season and the off season, we give our predictions on the season. We'll go over the championship odds, of course, and then our playoff picks and all that kind of stuff. So, we are losing playoff preseason picks, and then our fantasy picks. That's going to be a lot of fun going over our fantasy team. So, of course, remember, 2 years ago, CJ dominated everything. Last year, you dominated everything. So the pressure's on me for this year to see if I can equal you guys. And you'll be back, of course, talking IndyCar on March 2nd, which is actually just going to be a couple of days before the season begins, correct?
Correct. Yeah, they're preseason testing and thermal this week, and then which really, like talking to drivers this week, means absolutely nothing. They're not racing on this track this year. They've never been on this track, so there's really nothing of relevance for this test.
Testing on a track that they're not racing on this year.
Correct.
Why?
And and I wrote about this. They're limited with what they have as far as tracks they race on, and in February or preseason, because they want to start in early March. So you got to think, if you're going to do a preseason test around this time, makes sense. You don't want to do it during the Daytona 500 because all your media stuff gets swept away. So if you look at what they have, Long Beach, St. Pete, both are street courses. You're not going to build a street course to test on, so those are out the window. Monterey, where they ended the season, well, that could make sense, but they also test there the week before they go race the season finale, so that would be pointless to test in the preseason. Then the only other ones you have is Barber and Texas. Well, Texas is in super speedway. Well, you only race there once, and then you go to Indy. But Indy, you have a full 2-day open test in April. So why would you test in February? Plus, I just noticed that the Dallas-Fort Worth area is getting slammed by ice right now. So that's not good.
So does it help knowing how your car tests for any reason?
No, it's kind of just to get the cobwebs off. Because a lot of these drivers haven't been in the car, like Will Power mentioned yesterday or the day before. The last time he was in a race car was when he got out of the race car to win the championship. So you're talking 5 months. So it's just kind of let's ease into things, make sure all systems are a go, just kind of get used to the track. Like in the car, not the track. That's why I said speeds are of no relevance. It's like a 3-mile track. There's no other road course that's even on the schedule you can really compare this to. So
that's why I kind of said. It'd probably be a lot better if it was just like a mile track, and then maybe you could even do some cool kind of interviews, like every time a driver's done testing, he comes walking over to the booth and that kind of thing. But 3 miles, that's a little different. But
and it's a swanky course. It's an auto club. Like nobody can go. Like this isn't like fans can come watch.
Really?
It's like I think the membership for this club, if I'm not mistaken, yearly is $250,000.
So
it tells you the type of elegance and it's
excuse us.
So it's like it's not really fits the IndyCar where you can kind of go meet all the drivers in the car. This is the complete opposite. But I also wrote, maybe they need a race like that on the schedule. Maybe you come back there at some point. Hey, we'll spice it up a little bit. It's a road course. It's in Southern California. Maybe you come back there. Maybe you do another.
Get the money from those swanky individuals. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, this is your quote unquote. The way I look at it is in golf, like Masters is like this exclusive club. Like if you play the guts, they always go, "That's my dream is to go play the guts." Maybe this is that for
probably.
IndyCar.
Yeah.
Maybe this is their kind of like.
Why not?
Why not have that?
They have snobs in golf. They can have snobs in IndyCar too.
Exactly. People want what they can't have, so all of us are like, man, I'm never going to afford to go to that place. It kind of makes it desirable to watch. So, yeah, but a lot of drivers, like they said, what am I going to take from this season? There's absolutely nothing. So that's why I kind of wrote, like, one of my top 5 things to watch, I said was kind of cliche, is one of the things to watch is don't watch is the speeds. Everybody gets so open on who's the quickest on the day, who's quickest in the session. Don't even worry about that for this. I'm not even going to write about it. There's nothing to write about. That's why we did media day content, and that's why I said there's really nothing between now and St. Pete of relevance that's going to change from what we said. So we'll just talk before St. Pete.
We've already added 3 driver interviews from their press conference after the first day. We've got 3 more coming up that we're going to post in the next 24 hours. So a lot more interview press conferences that we're going to have here for each series. And this is our NASCAR show. So not that we have a whole lot to talk about, though, which is why it's okay. Bring in some more IndyCar or F1 talk. But and by the way, we are going to mix each series a little bit. Why not? I mean, this is more mostly a motorsports kind of deal as opposed to just NASCAR anymore. But for NASCAR, it's this crazy looking event. No one knew how it was going to work. This isn't for us. This is just for these California crazies, and maybe they could pick up some additional fans out there. Is there going to be any changes at all? Like the format, like what's the interest of this for the diehard fan? Like, why should we be interested in this?
Well, the first part is just coming out of the off season. Everybody gets excited to see the cars and the drivers again. So that's the interest level. For the diehards that know what's going on, the format changed slightly. You go from 23 starters in the main event to 27. So they added 4 more spots. So what that does is it changes the format leading in because you added 4 spots. So instead of the heat races, the top 4 of each guaranteeing the move on, now it's the top 5. That's really the main difference. But as last year showed, is the heat races were how much value is it when 2 of the 4, the entire top 4 starters of that heat race advanced on? All 4 of the heats, the pole sitter won. And if you go to the last chance qualifier, which this year would be 6th on down in the finishing order of the heat, will go to the last chance qualifier. And they split that into 2. So the first 2 heats, positions 6, 7, 8, 9, 6 through 10 of those will move on to the last chance qualifier. Heat race 2, 6 through 10 will move on to. So then it's the top 3 of each of those will advance. So what that gets you is 26 spots. The 27th spot, which is the provisional, will be the highest driver in points from last year that's not already locked in. So that way it kind of saves you for, like, let's say Logano wrecks. And, like, well, you don't really want your defending season champion sitting on the sideline for the main event. That at least he's got a lifeline back in. So if Logano makes it in, then now it goes to Chastain. If Chastain makes it in, then and just so
considering
forth.
This is in California, and this has nothing to do, we just talked about the IndyCar situation with the track. This track has nothing to do with Daytona. So so what are we accomplishing here? Is this just like a standalone? Is this just whatever happens in this race on Sunday has nothing to do with anything else moving forward?
Pretty much, yeah. It is no relevance. Last year, I could say too, the big marquee was it's the next gen, it's the debut of the new car. This year it's that same car, so that shine kind of faded a bit. Because at least last year it was you're learning the car, so that was kind of irrelevant. So yeah, it doesn't pertain to Daytona, but it could pertain to some short tracks. Because if we remember last year, guys was 15. That kind of went through the whole rest of the season. Well, now all the tricks are already exposed. What are you really going to gain to carry this over to anything else? It's a quarter of a mile track. The smallest track they race on is Lawrenceville, which is a half mile, so it's double the size of this. So there's really, it's just that. It is just an event to draw attention to the series for new fans. But compared, the whole reason they even did that, it's either that or nothing at all. And the whole reason they did that was a lot of people fail to realize the only reason the Clash was formed in 1979 was for a 30-minute window for CBS to fill a week before the Daytona 500. That's it. They wanted to get attention because CBS was airing the Daytona 500. And so that was their first year they aired it flag to flag. So they thought, well, let's get a little bit of attention going into it. Let's just have we need 30-minute windows, all you got. What can you do in 30 minutes? So NASCAR came up with, let's do the pole winners from the previous year. That's 8 cars, that's 10 cars, whatever, 20 laps. Winner take all. That's it. It kind of evolved to a 75 lap, 30 cars. It just evolved to like, well, this is another race that's not points paying. And then it even got further when they separated to the 3 segments. At Daytona was follow the leader in the first 2 segments. And then the final 15 lap sprint to the finish was a crash fest. And I looked, out of the last 2 years they ran on the oval, there's 38 cars that raced. 35 of them wrecked.
Well, that sounds like fun. Bring that back.
Yeah, that was all it was. So the team's like, this, we're wasting money. We're having to bring extra cars. It's a shit show. Who wants to watch this? So they moved it to the road course. Well, that flopped. Nobody watched it. So they're like, well, it's either we'll just put this thing out to the pasture and just call it a day, or let's try one last time to revive this thing, hence moving it to LA. And last year, 4.283 million watched it. 75,000 attended. 75% of that 75,000 have never attended a NASCAR race before. So I think they thought, well, that's a win. Because if you look at the road course race at Daytona the year before, only 1.5 million people watched it. If you go to the last oval in Daytona, so 2021 or 2020, 2.45 million watched it. So the Clash doubled it in LA than it did in Daytona.
That makes
sense.
What I thought. But now we have to see how they follow up.
Yeah, so that was my main question. One of my storylines coming in this year, or for this race, was, is the Clash back in LA next year? Because if it's a hit, like you hope, do you kind of risk it falling off? Because we all know these things are fads. They're going to come up and then they're going to fall quickly. You don't want it to fall quickly before it loses its luster. So to keep the luster, knowing that a football stadium works, think how many football stadiums out there you can go to. Go to Jerry World. You could do this anywhere at this point. So if it's good, that's my question, does it come back? If it's bad, then maybe it doesn't come back. So either way, there's a big question here in the Clash of, is it back in LA this time next year, or are we going somewhere else? Because I think you kind of have to take it to the road if it's good, but we'll see.
All right. So other than that, though, what you talked a little bit about formatting. So what's, as a viewer, how is it going to work? It's not just going to be one, like you talked about how it used to be. It's not just going to be, okay, race for 30 laps. Whoever wins. There's going to be different, you said heats.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through how many heats?
There's 4 heats. So to set the lineup, I got ahead of myself too. To set the heat lineups, they'll qualify Saturday night. So it'll be like a normal qualifying. And I think there's all 36 chartered teams. It's mandatory. You have to show up. If you want to keep your charter, you got to race in this. So that's why they kind of make it chartered. It's like you have to come. So the open cars typically they're usually the smaller budget teams. They're usually like, why would I travel across country when Daytona's coming up? I'm going to focus here and not there. So translation, you're probably only going to get it in the charter teams in it. So you got 36 spots, 36 cars for 27 spots essentially. So what you do is you single car qualify, and it's the top, 36, 1 through 36,
Okay.
the pole, so the fastest qualifier.
So this is the
Saturday.
old qualifying rules. It's just one.
Yep.
And by the way, this is one of many things we'll be talking about, maybe even next week. But so qualifying is not gonna. It's still going to be the same in NASCAR, where they're going to do these stupid segments. And okay.
Yeah, 2 rounds and all. I think this is just
better.
the one.
Yeah, just okay.
Yeah.
So they're gonna go. So they qualify. Okay.
And then so Sunday they'll come back Sunday. So that once they qualify, you're done. The quickest on Saturday is on the pole for Heat Race 1. The second quickest on Saturday is on the pole for Heat Race 2.
And so on. Okay.
Third and 3 and so on. So you feel so the 5th quickest will line up on the front row in Heat Race 1. And so on. So 1, 5, 9, 13,
and
17, 20, like
4
heats. So line up that way. So they're rewarding you for qualifying well. It's only 25 lap heat race. So it's short. I mean, we don't have short of the race. So
25 for each, for all 4. So it's 100 laps total.
100 laps, but when the heat, so each one's 25. So they'll go quick. I mean, we saw last time.
Oh, yeah, it's a quarter. Yeah, come on.
5.
Yeah.
So that's where track position comes into play, which reward, if you qualify well, you expect, well, if you're in the main event, you should be rewarded for that. So that's why they take, instead of the top 4 like they took last year, it's the top 5 finishers in each heat. They're in the main event. They're done to the main event.
That's 20 cars.
So that's your 20 fill. So then you go, the ones that aren't guaranteed in, they'll go to the 2 last chance qualifiers. Each race is 50 laps. So if you finished 6th in Heat Race 1, you're on the pole for last chance qualifier.
I mean, why do they have to have the last chance? Why don't they just have the top 20?
That's kind of what I feel. Do we really need the last?
Because anybody that's in that area in the back ain't going to probably win this race anyway.
My thing is, I'm cool with the heat races. Just let it be the finishers in the heat. The last chance qualifiers they use, because that's what they use on like the dirt show, the Saturday night dirt races or whatever. They have last chance qualifiers. I guess a semi-feature they call it. This one, I get what they're doing. They're trying to fill time, but as those guys don't really have a realistic shot of winning. It's just the only thing I do like about it is it at least gets those cars that are kind of in the back. TV time. They're going to be.
If anybody's still watching at that point,
Yeah, and then so you got the top 3 finishers of both of those. So that gets you to the 26 of the 27 starters. 27th would then be the spot that's reserved for the top 10 points. That's not part of that 26.
And then there's your 27. And how many laps?
And then it's 150 laps.
Any stages?
No stages, just a straight up, hey, you'll like this. We'll talk about this next week. We talked about some of the changes, the rule changes that are coming for this year. And we'll talk more about this next week, but I do mention during the stages, there are no more stage cautions on road courses.
Stage cautions.
You know how like they stage they're about the caution. They're just going to keep racing.
Oh, you mean in the road courses?
Yep, on all the road courses.
Good.
So the stage ends, you're like, this is so boring. It's like a 20-minute caution. Just keep going. The stage will end. You top 10 still get points, but you don't just stop. They'll keep going.
Okay.
So what I like about it is it adds strategy back because like we talked about all the road courses. Everybody's hit before the stage.
Ridiculous.
You don't, that doesn't happen anymore. So I like this because I think if it works, I don't think this is going to be a one-off. If it works, they might expand everybody's been asking for this. Let's just do this everywhere. That would be nice. Start with road courses, so maybe this kind of creeps up because
fingers
crossed.
But
we'll talk more about
But then again, I mean, how many times have we been looking at some of these races sometimes so without the stage cautions, there aren't any cautions. Nobody's stopping.
Yeah.
I mean, in the old days, we used to Jones for cautions. I mean, for a lack of cautions because there were too many of them. Now it's like you where are they? You need because if you don't get the caution, sometimes you get some of these cars dominate.
Yep, which could happen, and that's what this one at least adds strategy to the road courses. Some of the other tracks,
the road courses they had to change it. Yes,
because at least the with the stages in the past, if you fall a lap down early, you at least know there's a caution coming, and you can plan your pit stop in that stage around, knowing I'm going to stay out at that stage break and get my lap back at least. Now you may not have that luxury. Now you might get pinned a lap down. So to me, that if road courses it changes, I'm getting way ahead of myself. But if this happens in the future, I think it just completely changes all how they race again.
Absolutely. We'll keep an eye on it.
But one other rule change that's relevant for this weekend is the Hail Melon, aka the Hail Mary. That they call it Hail Melon because of Ross Chastain being a watermelon.
Hail Melon. Okay, that's a swing and a miss. Go ahead.
Yep, it is. Well, luckily it's a swing and a miss, but they're not even doing it anymore. That is because a lot of people wondered, as you can see in my background, how short an angle that track is. What would stop somebody from doing that Sunday? It's a non-points paying race. You got 2 weeks before Daytona. You got time to fix the car. What would stop second or third place from like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go up and ride the high. I'm going to do exactly what he did there because it will work. And then in the process, well, wouldn't the race leader, would he wreck himself to stay? Like then because it becomes an embarrassment. So NASCAR is like, let's get ahead of it. We're not allowing it to happen. If you do it, we're not saying don't do it, but if you do it, you're going to have a time penalty. So everything you gain, you could in theory lose again. So I don't think it's not worth the risk anymore. So pretty much no more Hail Melon rule. I don't know how I feel about it, only because last year it was legal. This year it's not. And I get NASCAR saying, well, hey, look, we don't want to change the rules for the final race. But you know that's going to be in every promo video. You know that's going to everything before.
That's true.
You're going to be promoting an illegal move, and it could confuse people. Outside of that, I also don't want the show to be amateurism when everybody's just wrecking themselves at the end. So I see both sides of the coin, but we will not see that this weekend. So anybody is asking, is anybody going to pull the next Ross Chastain?
Not going to happen. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. I'm all right with that.
Oh, and there is one more. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring this up. This could happen. It's Southern California, so it probably won't. They can race in the rain on tracks 1 mile in length or less, even on ovals.
Well, it would be actually better if it did rain.
Yep. So now they're saying, like, and IndyCar has this too. If it's like a full-blown downpour and there's puddling, they're not going to race naturally because these tires are just like if we're driving on our streets. If there's puddles, you hydroplane. But like they said, it'll speed the process up. So as your track drying, if it's damp, you can still race.
So you're talking about the regular schedule.
Yep. Even Sunday, if any track a mile or less, and this includes road courses too, which I know are over a mile.
Short tracks or road courses.
Or short tracks. Yep. If it's raining and it's not puddling, they'll race. They got a tire now. They got a rain tire they'll run in the wet. So instead of watching track dryers go around for 3 hours and get the thing completely dry, which to me I think adds an element of strategy, which I like with IndyCar races because do you get on the slicks? Who gets on the non-rain tires quicker because you go faster on non-rain? So it adds an element of strategy. So not saying it's going to rain in LA this weekend. It usually doesn't. But if it rains on Sunday night.
They did have bad weather there like a few weeks ago. It was like raining for like weeks.
Yeah. So it is California. I feel like that's another political show here or there. It feels like every biblical saying that ends up saying it's going to happen in time seems to happen out there. But so if it rains and it's not a full-blown downpour, it's not going to slow the show down.
Good.
That's for sure.
All right. So those are just a couple of rule changes that we'll talk about and we'll continue to talk about. Maybe we'll have some more next week when we preview the season. CJ comes on board. Yeah, I haven't seen any odds yet. So
I did finally the other day. That is for my cover.
So who's favorite? Is Logano favorite?
He is. DraftKings had him up. Logano is favored. Chase Elliott, I feel like he's favored in everything.
Who's a bargain?
Big bargain to me right now, Chase Briscoe.
Okay.
Plus 3,000.
Why is he a
30
bargain?
to 1. He, if you remember right, he ran well there last year. He qualified 6th.
No, I don't remember. I don't remember anything about this race last year. Not even sure how much of it I watched.
It was weird. This was the start of his breakout. And a short track seemed to be
Briscoe?
his best last year. Remember, he won.
Okay.
Yeah, he won Phoenix. He was good here last year. He was really good at Martinsville. Remember the round of 8, the last race, he was there. He finished 2022 with 6 top 10 finishes over the final 7 weeks. He was 4th in Phoenix the last race, so he's got a lot of momentum coming in. And he was good there last year, and he's 30-1 right now.
So we'll put a couple of bucks on Chase Briscoe.
Yeah, because I can't stress enough, he started 6th last year. You're not going to get this 30-1 if he starts up top on Sunday.
So we can do that right now.
Yep. Okay. Austin Dillon, 75-1.
Austin Dillon?
Yep, 75-1. Last year, you know where he finished in this race? 3rd.
Okay. So
75-1.
Okay. Why such generous odds then?
I think they just look at it. Remember, Austin Dillon last year was getting no love from him. Tyler Reddick last year was his teammate. Tyler Reddick started 2nd, won his heat race, led every lap in his heat race, started 2nd, was really good in the race, but he had that mechanical failure, so he dropped out. But Reddick was good. Austin Dillon was good. Nothing changed really on these cars packages between now and then. So I feel like a 75-1 value for right now, you might as well jump all over it because
I'll put a buck on Austin Dillon and a couple on Chase Briscoe.
And one more you want to run on is Justin
who?
Justin
Haley. Let's go with Justin Haley.
He's 100-1. Started 3rd last year. Ran in the top 3 all day until, remember, him and Kyle Larson had that contact and Larson spun him and wrecked him while they were running the top 5.
Kyle Larson wrecked him? No, come on now.
He hit him off 4 and sent him to the inside wall while they were running the top 5. So he also led every lap of his heat race. He started 3rd, ran up front all day, and you get him right now at 100-1.
That's it. Bucks in the bank. You got it.
Yep. So those 3, I think, are your values. Logano, to me, is a favorite. I like Kyle Busch at 9-1. You're still getting him at 9-1, so it's still a solid number. He started on the pole, led every lap of his heat race. He dominated early. He led, I have it somewhere around here. He led a lot of that race last year, 64 of 150 laps, and finished 2nd. He's taken over Reddick's car. I just said Reddick had a really strong year.
No more M&Ms.
Nope, and he's 9-1. So I would say right now, as far as favorites, I'd go Kyle because 9-1. I'm getting better odds on him, and I'd sprinkle some on those longer shots because if they start qualifying good like they did last year, they're not going to stay there long, especially on a track that's hard to pass on. So
there you go.
Early value.
Picks for the Clash.
A guy that I don't understand, Chase Elliott is plus 750, so between 7 and 8-1.
See, here's the thing, though. Once you start getting into those low numbers, as far as I'm concerned, I'm just saving them for the Daytona 500.
You got to.
I mean, I'm not wasting my money on the Clash with odds of like 7-1. I mean, come on now.
No, especially when he struggled in this race last year. He, I had to restart it. I think he was like he started 15th last year, and his struggles on track last year were short tracks like this.
True.
He was 15th. He placed 15th last year, starting 11th. He was 10th in both Martinsville races. He just wasn't kind of around the front. Why would I waste my money on him as a favorite now? Hamlin, same way. Hamlin, he finished last in this race last year. Toyota's outside of Kyle Busch kind of struggled. And Martinsville, he finished 28th in the spring and 5th in the fall, but that was 5th was because it's a playoff race, and it seems like those guys always find a way to the front. So I can't fathom having him, Chase, and Logano, like all of them towards the top. And like if I'm going to take a top, I'm going to go Logano and Kyle, and I'll punt on Chase and Hamlin. But again, like you said, it's a Clash. I would probably right now just go Kyle, Busch, Briscoe, Austin Dillon, Haley.
Okay.
Call it a day. And we'll see. You can always evolve. I would live bet this race only because you're going to know start position matters. So outside of that, again, it's a Clash, like you said. Don't go too big, too strong early. It's a long season. Daytona, you're going to get way better odds. Maybe you could
parlay some of the, maybe if you want to parlay some of the, like a Kyle Busch, parlay him with a Super Bowl team, or parlay him, if they allow you to parlay into the 500 too.
Exactly. And you could parlay too. I noticed Barstool, because covers, I couldn't find any props. Barstool Sports had props yesterday. Kyle Busch should be the top Chevrolet finisher. I just say he's now in a Chevy. was plus 400. So that's not a bad one to parlay into maybe, because if you think Kyle's going to win, he's also in a Chevy, you might as well take him as a top Chevy finisher, because the two in front of him are Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson. And Larson, he was just kind of there last year. He wrecked Haley, but he never led a lap.
It's going to be interesting because, again, Kyle, this will be one of the storylines that we'll talk about next week, which is not only is Kyle on a different team, but Kyle's driving a Chevy.
Yeah.
So
completely
we have no idea how that's going to work out. Could be exactly what he needs, or it can't be any worse than it's been. So maybe this is a good thing for him.
It could be the fresh start. RCR wasn't like they were bad last year either. If you can remember, right? RCR had 4 wins, 3 with Reddick and Austin Dillon. Yeah. So not saying they're bad. So, and Kyle is going to be motivated. We know he's going to want to stick to Gibbs for not re-signing. So I'd be curious to see what he could do. What a better way to come out and to win the first race with your new team.
So when we're going into our fantasy picks next week, what specific changes or anybody's thinking of with just their overall futures, say for championship futures, and they're trying to gauge the entire season? What specific changes do you think that we should be keeping an eye on? That's one of them. But are there any other major team changes or anything that could change the direction, either good or bad, for a few drivers?
Not really, because it's there wasn't a ton of driver changes. And the few that there were, I don't think are necessarily going to up or heighten or decrease somebody's chances. You're replacing Kyle Busch with Ty Gibbs. I'm not saying Ty Gibbs is going to win a championship, but Kyle Busch also he didn't look like the Kyle Busch of old last year either. I would say with Ty Gibbs, with his aggression level that we've seen in the Xfinity Series, who's to say he can't hop in that, it's 54 car now. Used to be the 18 car. It's the same team, but they changed the number. Who's to say he can't replicate what Kyle Busch just did in that same car? So I see. I'm not comparing Ty Gibbs to Kyle Busch by any stretch of the imagination, but I also say Kyle kind of underperformed last year with that team, and Ty, I think, could come in at that level. I feel like he's very talented enough to come in at that level, so I don't see that as a decrease. Same thing with Tyler Reddick leaving and Kyle Busch coming in. I think Tyler Reddick won 3 times last year, and he was a playoff driver, and he looked good. He was a championship dark horse. Who's to say Kyle Busch, the old Kyle Busch, who we know could still drive? We just know there's a lot of circumstances going on last year. Who's to say he can't enter that car and do the exact same thing? Is he going to make it a championship one? It's hard to say when Childress hasn't won a championship since 1994. I don't think it's necessarily all of a sudden Kyle Busch is that missing ingredient.
Yeah, but after what happened last year, though, in the series, and anything's open. We don't know what's going to happen this year. It could be, again, the same exact thing. We get a parity galore. Or, as you've been saying all last year, well, now that they've had a full year, and now are they also going to have more practice time this year, or the same amount of practice time?
I think it's the same amount.
So there's not going to. So the veteran drivers are not going to have any additional edges with more practice time. Okay.
It'd be more their teams have learned more to adapt.
Okay.
But that's right. I would side more with the bigger teams. But like I said, too, I think the parity strength, as far as I don't see 19 different winners. I could see 14 to 15, but they're all kind of the bigger team driver. I don't think like someone like Ryan Blaney goes winless.
Yeah.
I don't think Martin Truex Jr. goes winless. So honestly, strategy-wise, I remember asking this question to CJ on a wrap-up show last year. Since he has the first pick, who would your first pick be? It's so hard to find one. I don't think I still have that answer today. I don't envy him being the first pick because at least I could see what you two go with, and I can just take the next best. Because I just kind of put a number on him. The only reason I thought Logano was on him last year was he was the trend of every other year. It seemed like he got to the final round. So therefore, I don't know if I'm as high as him this year. It's hard to repeat in general.
No, you can't be.
So I don't know. No. So Chase Elliott seems to be a mainstay in the championship 4. That seems to, so you can kind of look at trends like that. In last year, it factored over. Denny Hamlin he made it to there. If not for that Ross Chastain move we just talked about, he would be back in the championship 4. So I think your usual suspects, And I do think, like I said, the parity. It's just not going to be as many winners.
Well, what about long shots though?
Do
you see any of the drivers that maybe they haven't won yet, or they just maybe they have one win, or they're just on the cusp? Do you see any drivers that, and you mentioned Haley, one of them, guys like that you think might actually be like Ross Chastain, the Ross Chastain of 2023? And can you give me a few drivers there that we should keep an eye on?
Ryan Preece, I think he's going to be the breakout.
Preece.
Yep.
Wow.
He's going to be one that he's in that 41 car with Stuart Haas. Another learning year last year. I think now that you put him in there, he kind of punched above his weight with JTG. And now you're giving him a good car. It's a Ford car. They've been high on him. If you give him a good car, he's proven he can win. He did it in the Truck Series. He did it when the Xfinity Series with Gibbs. Now he's with Stuart Haas. I would venture to say my number one driver, who's the next Ross Chastain?
Wow.
Him. I think Ryan Preece is the next. I would go on to say I think he's a playoff driver this year. I think he's a steal. Do I think he's going to win the championship? I guess he could, off the parity, but I do think he's a playoff driver, and I think you can get him for good odds right now.
Yeah, because let's keep in mind, again, all you have to do is take a look at Ross Chastain's pre-2022 numbers, and they weren't very good. There was nothing there to indicate that he was going to have the year he had, so why not Ryan Preece?
He was like 75-1 in some races early in the year, and then he really went up. So Preece, like I said, Justin Haley. I like Allmendinger. Allmendinger is refreshed. He's shown since he's gone back to the Xfinity Series, he's better on ovals. And the road courses, there's 5 of them in the regular season. All he has to do is
win one.
Exactly. And then we saw what he did, even in the Cup Series and the part-time starts at the end of the year. I think he had 4 top 10s in his last 5 races.
He did well. Yeah.
So, and you're going to get good odds for him. So I like him. I don't know what Ty Gibbs' early odds are. I do think he can do well in that car. Eric Jones.
Ty Gibbs is 100-1.
Yeah, I would take him early.
Ryan Preece is 50-1.
See, they're starting to take notice. 50-1. When he was a JTG, he was like 100 to 250-1.
Oh yeah.
Driver. Well, what's Stenhouse? Because that was his teammate then. They were around similar.
500-1.
Okay, so that if he was still a JTG, Preece would be 500-1. So they're basically telling you that car could have him be
Justin
a breakout.
Justin Haley is 250-1.
It's worth a grab. He third at Darlington last year. He's second year in this car. I think he can make some noise.
How about Busch? Do you think Busch's got another level to get to?
I do. I don't feel they're there yet. Kozlowski kind of even mentioned that they're not the weekly contender. Granted, nobody is. Top 5s are hard to come by, but they're on their way. They're on the cusp, but they're just not quite broken out yet. They do expect a better year. So he won at Bristol. So better year with 2 wins, another win. But there's a win sitting there. I feel like there is a win sitting there.
How about Eric Jones? Because he did show some signs, but was that just?
I think it's going to help with him since they rebranded. They kind of got this new energy around him. You got Jimmy Johnson coming to the mix around him. He's got a lot of good people and a lot of good the funding. They hired a new president. Okay. Jimmy brought in some money, so they're kind of building up where they're not necessarily that small team like they seem that they are. I think he could have another break. He won the Southern 500.
We know how talented he is, so absolutely. Yep. Yeah, Jerick Jones definitely.
But to me, I think there's more value with finding a couple of those diamonds in the rough right now than I think, because the top guys just throw a blanket over them. It's really no way to know out of those top guys who's going to break out.
And most of those odds aren't going to be that different. Yes, if you want to, with the Elliott and the Larson, those two specifically, they could go down to 2-1 or 3-1 within a month and they don't change. It could still be that way. If you want to go with those guys at 5 or 6-1 right now, by all means, go ahead. But yeah, for the most part.
And you got to realize, the smart way to look at this is look at the first few races of the season too, because that's when it starts changing. Look at Daytona. Elliott and Larson and Hendrick in general have been terrible there in the Daytona 500. They qualify well. They look good in the duels. And then the Daytona 500 comes, and I think Elliott's got 1 top 10 or 2 top 10 total. Larson's got 4 or 5. No, he's got 5 top 5 finishes in his career at Daytona and Talladega combined. So I'm not going to waste money on taking them early, knowing that their odds aren't going to change between now and you got Fontana, which they could be good at. But is it really going to drop that much even after that? It's the Vegas stretch on that it's like that's when you want to start hitting on them. So I would own in on the diamonds in the rough early, grab a couple favorites, but see how it plays out.
How about we saw some life at the end of last season with Harrison Burton?
Yeah. I feel like second year, you always hear the sophomore slump. So if he can avoid that sophomore
slump. Well, he didn't really. He slumped the first year, so I don't think that he could. Yeah. He doesn't have. Yeah, that only works. I think if you do well as a rookie. Yeah.
True. Yeah, they've got the Penske alliance. So if they can make that work, like the Penske guy, because it seemed like Penske overall, they have their times of good and their times of bad. But if you looked up, more times than not, I mean, Cindric won. Blaney went winless, but he made it to the round of 8. Logano won a championship. So if they can bottle that up and get him with that grouping, I think he can have a breakout year. He could find a win.
What about Noah Gragson?
I'm curious with him. I've got him as a play for the Daytona 500, and we'll talk about that in the Daytona 500 show. I'm just curious for the whole season. He's aggressive. He's like Ross Chastain was. Like, he's aggressive. He's going to run you hard. But does he get dumped by somebody? Ty Dillon showed that equipment wasn't the best last year, even as Eric Jones' teammate. Now, is it Ty Dillon or is it the equipment? We're going to see with Gragson because we all know he's got talent.
But he's a rookie, so it's still being a rookie. It's just hard.
It is, especially I think what helped him and Ty Gibbs out is they both ran almost half the season for injured drivers. And that's the only thing with Priest that I hesitate with is a lot of people fail to realize in the Xfinity car, in the Truck Series, and the Pass Cup car, it's your typical H pattern shifter.
Okay.
And the Cup Series, it's the sequential. It's just you just go straight down or straight up. We saw veterans struggle with that last year. Blaney did it multiple times of coming out of pits and he thinks he's upshifting, but he's downshifting when he's going up. Hamlin did it a lot.
Hamlin had that major gaffe that lost a race because of it.
So that's the only thing I think the learning curve is sped up for those two is they've felt that car. You got to get in the habit of doing this now. Priest hasn't. That's the one thing I wonder if Priest is coming in.
Yeah, he's really a rookie. Yeah. And not that he, because how long ago was it when he was driving Cup?
I think it was like 18 through 20 or 21. He ran 2 or 3 years with JTG Cup, but he obviously did not run the next gen. So he ran the next gen in the Clash last year, but he didn't really run it very often during the race. Not in the regular enough to really grasp what he's doing. Where all these other guys, that's why I mentioned that they've known the tricks of the trade. The shifting, all that, they've done that last year. Now that's become second nature. So that's why I feel like some of those bigger teams, that caused some parity because the learning curve. These big teams have the money to get it right quicker. They've all spent all off season developing, and this area has been our weakness. How do we get strong? Because these drivers, I always said it. People like to battle NASCAR drivers. F1 drivers are the best in the world, and you can throw in IndyCar drivers. Well, NASCAR drivers are pretty good too. There's a reason they're the best of this trade. Logano and Bell and Busch and Hamlin and Elliott, all these guys, they're going to figure it out quick too. And then you throw in a team with the resources. That's where I think they separate themselves just a little bit. I'm not saying it's going to be like 2017 where you had Truex, Harvick, and Kyle Busch and like
think so.
22 of the 36. We're not going to see that. But I do think the bigger teams are the ones.
Well, we'll see.
What's your boy Blaney right
What's
now?
that?
What's Blaney's
Blaney's odds to win the championship?
Yeah.
I believe he was 12-1. Let me see. He is 10-1.
Okay. They're starting to – remember last year he was 12 and 14-1. I felt like all
he's
season.
14. He's the fourth choice.
So they're jumping on – that's saying something for a winless driver.
Yeah, exactly.
They're kind of
right.
I thought he was going to be 12 or 14-1. That's a bargain. They've already got him at 10. So, yeah, he's one win for, I think, going to 7 or 8-1, I bet.
All right, so good stuff for the first go around. Next week, again, it's on Tuesday. The three of us will get together. So CJ will join us. Jam-packed show. We'll talk about some of the other key things from this past offseason to keep an eye on heading into 2023. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty, including our fantasy picks. Actually, we're going to have our fantasy picks first, and then we're going to go right into our predictions for the entire season. And then we will return the week after that. Actually, it'll be on Thursday that we're going to return, and that'll be the day of the duels. So we'll do the show actually before the duels that night. We'll have our Daytona 500 prediction show, and that'll be pretty much, that's our first, that's how we're going to start things off with as far as our weekly race preview schedules will be on Thursday. We're going to see how that goes in the beginning. If that works out well for us, we're going to keep it. If we feel like we can change it earlier in the week, because we prefer it earlier in the week, but a lot goes on earlier in the week, and sometimes you need a few extra days to digest everything. So, but first things first, Daytona 500 preview show will be on a Thursday, the day of the duels, but we'll be on next week, next Tuesday, for our fantasy draft and our predictions for the season. So in the meanwhile, what do you got going on at Race Review Online, Eric?
Ton of IndyCar stuff from media content days. Probably 28 articles up there now. I had previews and features of every team, seemed like every driver. So all that stuff's up, and then we'll just focus on granted, they're testing these next 2 days. Like I said earlier at the start of the show, there's nothing's going to come out of on-track stuff. All the stories have already been written. It'll be more the focus on the Clash now. I've got previews up, things to watch, covers. I'll have the betting picks. Those should actually go live either today or tomorrow. Granted, you're kind of pulling hairs there with the Clash and betting and who to pick with 1 year, but it'll be up. I did my best to see what we could get, so that'll be up, and then recap of Sunday's race.
Sounds good. Well, looking forward to it. We're almost there, Eric. We'll see. This is our opportunity to kind of get the cobwebs out. So now they're out.
Yep. This is our preseason.
Now they're out.
So there we go.
We'll get really going on Tuesday when we bring in CJ. So it should be a lot of fun. Appreciate it as always, Eric. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Thank you. Yep.
And don't forget, everybody, like, subscribe, all that stuff, real important. And definitely let us know what you think in the comment section. Do you have any questions? You guys did a great job last year, and we're looking forward to an even better year this year. We're also going to have live programming this year, so keep that in mind, and we'll let you know exactly when. But that should be a lot of fun as well. We'll see you on Tuesday.